Okay.
sustainability.
Tunkashila Kantanka Ampetu Kile Wopila Tranka Chiche Tunkashila Kantaka. Oyate King Asnikia Ye Naha Woyate King Ushilapikte Naha Oyate King Zania na Wichozane Hamidakiasi.
Hmm. Thank you for that. So I just want to welcome everybody. My little sister there got hold of me a little while ago, and then she said, "Do you want to do this webinar?" I was like, "Webinar on what?" And about food sovereignty. So sometimes there's a confusion about what food sovereignty is and what food sustainability is.
Right.
And so the United Nations says that food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agricultural systems. It puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies rather than demands of the markets and corporations. And so it's everything from seed to harvest, and how that is defined in your own culture and in your own community. And so for us as Indigenous people, that really depends on our own cultures and where we live. So first, and I forgot to say, who I am and everything. So my name is Joye Braun, or Wambly Wiakawi, or Eagle Feather Woman, and I'm a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I work for Indigenous Environmental Network, and food sustainability, food sovereignty is one of the cornerstones of the Indigenous Environmental Network. And we work on a lot of different things as well in the environmental field. But at the cornerstone of everything that we do is what we put into our bodies and what has an effect on our bodies and our families and our tealspies, and our environment. And our environment, of course, is our tribes and our families. So when we're talking about food sustainability and food sovereignty, they're separate, but they are also interconnected. And so as Lakota people, or what non-native people call us, the Sioux, which is really Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people, we have traditionally our own foods and our own food systems, which we are bringing back. And of course, we couldn't do a lot of our own stuff for a very long time, and a lot of that was tied into the United States government forcing us to assimilate, forcing us to move onto reservations, and forcing and taking away a lot of our major food resources, like the buffalo, and regulating things that are not only traditional but life sustaining, like our ability to hunt and gather and fish, and even taking away our ability to have our own seeds. So one of the things in my own family that we kept alive is the white corn. And the white corn was part of our Dakota heritage, but our family kept it alive for years and years and years. And I grew some this year. It didn't really have a very good growing season. Climate change is really affecting a lot of our indigenous food systems, whether we are Lakota, whether we are Huma living down in Louisiana, or whether we are like my husband's tribe, the Aleut living on the Alaska Peninsula. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Waniya Locke and Kimimila Locke and let them introduce themselves.
Hamidakiapi, Waniya Machiapi, Yamoslata. So as you guys know, my name is Waniya and I'm on the southern side of South Dakota. I've been studying traditional Lakota medicinal plants since I was at the age of 8. And one of my teachers, her name is Margaret Schrummel, and she's the daughter of One Bull, and One Bull is one of the sons of Sitting Bull. And so when it comes from direct knowledge down the line, it was generational knowledge that was passed on to me. And I was taken along with 3 other girls. So there's a total of 4 of us that were taken out. And we weren't given the names of the plants, but we were able to recognize the plants for what they look like. And we were also able to identify like how their uses. But one of the key things was like, and this goes along with like language loss, is we weren't given the name. So we weren't given like the Lakota names, and we weren't given the Washichu names. All we knew is like we could recognize a plant and we knew what it was used for. And I just really want to open up this for the Baha'i community because it's really important, especially with the COVID pandemic going on and what's going on globally, and understanding that we are facing a food shortage because of the current system we have now is not sustainable. And we as a community are obligated to take care of each other and to help each other during these hard times. And COVID really proves that the system is not sustainable and it's not doable. And that's what we need to help each other with. So I just wanted to help open up these dialogues. Go ahead, Kim.
Hamitakiapi, Kimimila Machiapi, Yamoslota Hemataha. Good afternoon, my relatives. My name is Kimimila. I'm coming to you from Standing Rock. I'm from the south side. I live on the north side. Hey, it's no difference. It's what else. But I'm definitely no traditional foods expert by any means. But I have had the privilege of growing up, being around, being surrounded by, being immersed in, being, told to jump in and go do this. And like last weekend I was elbow deep in Tanija, cow guts, buffalo guts. So it's things like that I've had the privilege of being a part of and understanding that in order to be a good relative, it's all interconnected. It's all interwoven. You take care of self, you take care of your relatives, take care of the plant relatives, you take care of community, service you can be. It starts from a lot of the birth work that I do centers around education, just education of young women, because it starts as a child. If a person grows up healthy, if a person grows up eating right, it's all interconnected. So it's difficult to separate it. This food sovereignty, being a good relative, it's all interconnected. I feel like we're coming at this from all different angles, and I was actually asking my sisters earlier. I was like, do we have an outline, or are we just gonna like go in circles, or like we usually do? Because like sometimes we try to do like the linear things, and the linear sometimes we'll do loops around the linear, and that might help others, but so this may seem like we don't have a lot of organization, but the main thing is wherever you are, that's, wherever you are in this continent, wherever you are in the world, however you're tuning in, there's food resources right where you are. So it's, you know, it's critical to tap into that. And we're going to kind of jump into some of the reasons behind that, like why. Why are we doing this? Why is this even important? So I think I'm going to pass it over to Joy.
Well, and the other part of this is we were looking at how does this apply to us as Baha'is? You know, and a lot of times when things come up, you know, everybody goes, well, well, not everybody, but we look at things from an indigenous lens. And then other people start looking at it and go, well, what does that mean? And what does that, how does that apply to us? And how does it apply to us as members of the Baha'i faith, but in a culturally appropriate way, not in appropriation. And so that's really important. And so I started looking through a lot of the writings in the Baha'i faith, and there hasn't been a whole lot of study into the writings about food sovereignty and food sustainability. And as my sisters were talking about, you know, we are in a pandemic, and this pandemic was, geez, I remember the potential of a pandemic being talked about in the 90s. And that we were told way back then by people like Chauncey Dupreez, who was one of our Lakota spiritual leaders, that we needed to get ready for when the world was going to make this great shaking. And the world is shaking now. You can see it everywhere. You can see it socially. You can see it in the climate change that's happening around the world. So I had been looking, and you know, what does it mean? And there were different things by Abdul Baha, some things by Shoghi Effendi, and here's one that says special regard must be paid to agriculture. This is by Abdul Baha in Paris Talks. He characterizes it as an activity which is conducive to the advancement of mankind and to the reconstruction of the world. Isn't that interesting? Reconstruction of the world, agriculture. Abdul Baha asserts that the fundamental basis of the community is agricultural tillage of the soil, relation to economic and social development of the nations. The Universal House of Justice underlines the importance of agriculture and the preservation of the ecological balance of the world. And this was from a conservation of the Earth's resources, volume 1, page 81. So, you know, when we look at things from an indigenous perspective, it is everything, not only medicinal plants, but things like our different corns, our different squashes, our different beans, the three sisters. I have brothers that helped bring back the Panca sacred corn. And like I said earlier, you know, we had saved the white corn. But I also remember hearing about different squashes that had been brought back from that thought they had been extinct, but were brought back. And so it's important, you know, that we look at how and what foods do we traditionally eat, and what foods should we want to go back to, and what medicines do we want to go back to. I can tell you that here in the while the pandemic is going on, there's been a huge amount of mutual aid happening in the indigenous community with regards to sending out packages that include teas in foods. And Waniya has been a part of that. You want to talk a little bit about that, Waniya?
So at a grassroots level, this is what I've been helping with is making elderberry elixir. And that's actually not an indigenous plant to the plains area. It's mostly the Northwest, and it likes really rocky mountain areas. But Lakota Dakota people were a part of the trade system, and that's understanding the food systems and bartering and trading with other different tribes. So even though it wasn't historically from the plains area, we still utilized it. We still had it incorporated. So it's using elderberries, rose hips. I started dropping ginger into it because I really like the way ginger really helps. Again, it's understanding how these foods and feeding your system, your immune system, it's literally feeding your immune system and what you put into your body to be healthy, especially during this pandemic. There is Beth White Mountain, Linda Black Elk, Sunshine Claymore, and Deb Gray Eagle. I think that's her last name. I just know her as Deb, Auntie Deb. and and then myself, there's 5 women who, in Teepee Tolman, there's 6 women who are collectively working together in providing these services to our communities. And it is 100% mutual aid, 100% off of donations. And just to make sure that these COVID positive families have the resources to our traditional teas. So using like mullein is part of the grassroots plains area that is historically from here, and it's a really good lung medicine. So you can make it into a tea or you can smoke it. I've seen people smoke it like tobacco, and I've seen people make tinctures. And all 3 forms are really, really well and really good for you. But it's as long as you have that coming into your body. And so like we've been doing mullein tea, cedar. Like I'm really thankful for our Northwest families for sending out boxes and boxes of cedars to us to distribute out to our communities. The cedar does grow here, but because of like the drought system and how climate change is affecting our people. And I want to tail back into that in a little bit. But cedar is historically from here. It is one of our Lakota traditional plants that we utilize all the time. But because of climate change, it's really affecting like how much we can't take enough without damaging the community of the cedar family here. And that's one thing that was really scary. So I'm really thankful for the Northwest people for stepping up, and because they have an abundance where they can harvest where it won't damage their community or that community environment of plants. So they've been helping us get cedar. One thing that Joy brought up that I really would like to share, where I said I was going to tail back on climate change, is everything within Indigenous communities, everything's connected. So all of our stories, all of our songs, our history, it's all interconnected, and they're all interdependent. And one things that we relied upon in harvesting was our star knowledge. So we knew by gazing up at the stars, like when it was time to go and harvest like timsila, when it was time to go and harvest like choke cherries, or when it was time to go and harvest whatever plant was of that season. We would use the stars to help navigate when we were going to go out and then come back in. And what's really, really sad within the past 6 years is our stars are no longer lining up with the time of harvest. And that's all due to climate change. And that's something that really is scary because, that is knowledge. That's generational knowledge that was passed on to us that we can no longer rely on. We literally just have to go out and time the plants. We can't rely on the stars to line up with the plants anymore. And that's something that's directly caused by humans and extraction industries. Sorry, I got emotional. I almost started crying.
Kimmy, do you got anything to add?
Not necessarily, but yes. I mean, yeah, so I'm always hesitant to give this, to give medicines that, because I don't know who's tuning in, where they're tuning in from. And um just like any, like anytime you go to somebody's house, they have a protocol when you enter their home, or sometimes they don't. And that's the actual protocol, is where you can just enter. But when you're going to somebody's house for the first time, it's always important to, and to get an idea, to find out what's the proper protocol to come into their home. Like some people like take off their shoes, or other people, there's expectations of where to sit. You can't sit, like if it's got plastic on it, there's rooms you can't go into. There's ways you conduct yourself. You don't just walk in and, like grab whatever you want, take what you want, eat what you want, open the fridge. You don't do those things. So just as you wouldn't conduct yourself that way in another person's house, it's the same when you go among the plant relatives. They're still our relatives. So I'm really hesitant to tell people, this medicine is good for this, because they might tromp into those, to those relatives' homes and just destroy it, which is what's happened. There's been this what colonization has done is, like, it teaches people to not remember their relationship, to not remember to be a good relative. So people who are colonized, then it's really easy for them to go in and just be like an invasive species and destroy things and take and consume, kind of, I think, similar to the way, I don't even want to say it almost, but to the way toddlers behave, where there's like no like control of behavior. But even with toddlers, there's a reason for that, But anyway, yeah, obviously I've shed this way of thinking. So it's for those reasons that when I talk about food sovereignty, I think it's that's what I mean, though. It's really important to ground yourself in where you are, like where, like the traditional foods that are where you are, not pulling it from another place. The plant relatives have been kind of letting us know, like all along, if they're growing, a lot of them were growing in abundance last summer. And so if you're paying attention, that was the time to go and get it. But that's happened everywhere. They've been kind of like tuning, like letting us know, like, hey, there's a bunch of us here. You're gonna get us, like they're even showing up and showing out, like all pretty and stuff, like looking right at you, like, hey, so relative, oh, you forgot you're my relative. It's funny. Like I look at the world like in a really animated way, so that's kind of how I see it. Like, oh, my bad, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you, my bad. I was acting a little shy. So but anyway, that's my hesitancy, is in telling people this medicine is good for this, because it might not be where you are, and then I don't want you to tell it to come, because there's other medicines where you are that are growing to help you. And that's where I feel like this is where the idea of something I read once, it says independent investigation of truth. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but gee, just snarky AF and but this is where I feel like that really comes into play, is where this is where it behooves you to dig in to find out what are the plants here, what's the proper way to conduct oneself when going to harvest it, when is the proper time to do it, how do you approach it, what part of it do is the leaf the medicinal part, is it the root, how do you collect it, what plants grow in conjunction, to grow on the top of the mountain, does it grow near a tree, so there's so many things, there's so much knowledge around it, like my sister was saying, to know to look at the stars. This year we weren't able to do that, so then it became a matter of just getting out on the land and walking the land and looking. Whoa, that's pretty grown now. That's already, whoa, everything is off. Like everything is off. And if you're walking the land, you'll see it, you'll understand, you'll know. So that's what I mean by I have nothing to add and I have a lot to add. So yeah.
But that's really good though, because it's important to in all of our types of discussions, we talk about decolonization, and we talk about responsibility, and we talk about who are you accountable to, and whether you are accountable to your family members or to the plant nation or to the animal nation, or different things, because it's not just plants that are medicine, it's also animals that are medicine too. But everything around us, the water is the first medicine. So if the water is polluted, we've got to be thinking about what pollutes the water. And so that's where we as individuals must be accountable to not only that which is around us, but to everybody. It's one of the main reasons why we stood up, because water is the first. But to talk about decolonization and about what Kimimila was saying about how people hear about something and then they go in and they commercialize it. How many of you have seen smudge bundles at like Trader Joe's or something like that? That's pretty disgusting to us. And if you're somebody that has bought something like that, a smudge kit, I would have a hard time looking you in the face. I would pray for you, but I would still have a hard time looking at you, especially if you came out with a turkey feather and all that, because I've had that happen to me before, and I've had to go, okay, this person's just ignorant, and ignorant just means not knowing. But yeah, don't buy smudge kits. But again, that's commercialization, and they've done that so much with those smudge kits that the white sage in California is in danger. The white sage is in danger, and it's got a different smell than the sage that we have out here, but it's in danger. And again, that's a medicine. So but again, when we talk about food sovereignty, in the houses of worship, when we talk about being a Baha'i, the houses of worship wasn't just supposed to be the house of worship. There's also supposed to be like nursing home and a hospital, and there's supposed to be all these different social programs and things that are supposed to be built up around houses of worship. But if you start reading the writings, you'll also see that it's a completely different economy and it's all based on spirituality, and it's all based on community. So and right now in the world that we live in, Western society, which has pervaded everywhere, is the commercialization of just about everything. In fact, they even want to quantify water, and they even want to quantify carbon in the form of like carbon offsets and carbon credits, which are a complete false solution to climate change. Don't believe carbon offsets and carbon credits. Those are evil things. And in fact, carbon credits and carbon offsets are often precipitate genocidal actions among Indigenous people, particularly amongst our relatives in South America, but are coming to the United States and so-called Canada. So, but we do have to start thinking about how do we change everything? Because as Indigenous people, we did have, and Waniya talked about this a little bit, we had trade routes all across Turtle Island. And how else would we get dentilium shells and abalone shells? How else would we have a word for alligator in Lakota language? How else would we know about chocolate or the cacao plant? Well, but we did. So we need to start thinking about true ways of changing things and making food, not only food, but water, a primary thing within our communities. And we as Baha'is have the opportunity to do that. We as Baha'is have an opportunity to do that, whether you're Indigenous or not. You can have things like community gardens. And you can have food pantries. You can start developing mutual aid things for your own communities that are being affected by COVID. And healthy food is one of the things that our relatives that are coming out of COVID, they're craving. They're craving healthy food. They're craving healthy food. They're craving teas. When you talk to our relatives, they're craving all kinds of teas. So those are the things that we're sending out. You can have mask drives. I'm sitting here right in front of me. I have 1,400 masks right now that are ready to go out to the community here. But so what time is it? Oh, 3:39. So there's lots of different things. So like the food sovereignty. Like I said before, food sovereignty and food sustainability are two different things. As Indigenous people, we need to look at not only different foods that we had, but also different techniques that we had of preserving the food. So things like drying meat. I don't even eat meat, but I know how to dry meat. And drying corn, chokecherry patties. Go ahead, Kimmy.
No, I was just like, I don't eat meat either, but I know how to dismantle an animal. Sure.
Well, see, that's what I do too. I mean, I don't even eat meat, but I sure can butcher.
It's funny because that's kind of why I don't eat meat, because like, you know, growing up, that's what we had to do. Like, you know, our mom's from Alaska, so whether we were on the prairies of the Dakotas, we were, you know, taking apart deer. And I shouldn't say it like that, but that's kind of what happens. You know, so we were taking apart deer, a buffalo, and like that's just what we did growing up. And then when we went to Alaska, you know, we're taking apart caribou, moose, salmon. And you know, I hit adulthood, and it's funny because a lot of the background for, like, in our family, like in Waniya and I, is exactly because of that. Because growing up until the Valdez oil spill, a large part of our diet was sustainable diet. We went to Alaska every summer. That's what we did. Waniya didn't have to do it because she was little, so she got to run around in the woods and stuff. And
That's a total lie. I was to work at the age of 3. I could barely walk. And I had to carry
hacking meat on here. Anyway,
the salmon before the Valdez spill were 5 feet long. This is before the spill, and now they have completely changed their structure. They're way smaller now. So I had 5 feet salmon that I had to hike up a mountain, and I'm 3. There's no games.
Anyway.
But yeah, that brings to light again the Valdez oil spill.
I forget people are watching. I shouldn't be making those faces.
But there's still, people think that the Valdez oil spill is cleaned up. It's never been completely cleaned up. The Valdez oil spill has never been completely cleaned up.
None of it has. Like, it's not even the Valdez, the BPP oil, even the Fukushima is still leaking. It's still projecting.
Exactly.
None
And
of it is
all pipelines leak. And that's why you see so much resistance against these extractive industries coming into our communities. And whether it's up at the Arctic Circle with the Gwich'in fighting, whether it's on Trans Mountain right now, Keystone XL, still Dakota Access Pipeline, Enbridge Line 3, Mountain Valley Pipeline, whether it's down in the Gulf Coast with additional, not only BPP, but additional Gulf oil leases going down, whether it's Indigenous people fighting in Mexico or so-called Canada, or down in Central America. Why do you think so many people from Guatemala came up and were trying to get into the United States? It's because of extractive industries. Why do you think that these banks and Deutsche Bank and Swiss Credit and other are trying to push carbon offsets and credits? And why do you think the United States and so-called Canada are pushing carbon credits and offsets so that places like Enbridge and Sunoco and TransCanada and Senic and Shell can continue polluting in Black and Brown and Indigenous communities, so can continue us front and center that are will being off to be, so let them keep polluting and saving a green thing. Doing a green thing, and that's why you see in people standing, because water is in our plant and animal kingdom is threatened, and our families are literally being slain. And food sovereignty is all part of us being accountable to the rest of the world. And for a large, as Baha'is, I see of us go, oh, we can't be political. No, you don't politically involved. You get socially involved, socially responsible to your community, and you start doing something. That's my soapbox.
I mean, I totally agree. Yeah, no, I 100% agree and back that up, that you don't have to be political to be social. And we're all interdependent, and we need to have these discussions with everyone.
Yeah. I started to talk about the Valdez oil spill. Sorry. I feel like you can tell I teach middle school because the conversation devolves when I start talking. But yeah, I guess that I feel like that's part of it because people go to stores and they're completely disconnected from where their food comes from. And because I had the privilege of not growing up on store-bought meat, and I didn't recognize that as a privilege then because we used to go to Bismarck once a month. And that was the one time I got to go to McDonald's. And I remember being so stoked that we would go to McDonald's once a month. So I didn't recognize that I was only eating like the best, leanest, wildest, fresh meat, like all the time. Like that was it. But so I go to college and I've kind of been a vegetarian off and on. Like I call myself a vegetarian, but it's just because I do not like the way store-bought meat tastes. Like I prefer wild meat. Like I prefer meat that I grew up on. And I didn't have, yeah, I guess that's it. So I feel like people need to, like, if you're not understanding even where, like, what you're putting into your body, like what prayers were said when that, when they packaged up that cow, was that, I know they have free range chicken and stuff, but were prayers said over that chicken when they cut it up? And when you're, like when you go out and actually get your food, those things happen. You're coming in there with intention. You're thanking that animal for feeding you. You're thanking them for providing nutrition. You're thanking them for, it's a completely different way of operating, and of consuming and of nourishing your body when you're taking that stance and you're thinking about that. So, and I know that there are religions where you can buy meat where they know that that happens, but I feel like it's different if you're actually doing it, going out and getting it. And I'm not saying everyone become hunters and do that, but I think it's beneficial for everyone to take pause and to really think about, the animal that's that what environment were they in? Are you bringing that animal from way far away, and how was that destroying the earth, and how was that, how were those things interconnected? How much gas was used for it to be shipped all the way to you? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant, maybe people really are thinking about these things, but I feel like from the way I see people behave, I don't think those trains of thoughts are really happening. And I feel like to be a good relative and to stop, operating parasitically in the world where we're just taking and taking without thinking about the damage it's causing. I feel like that's necessary. Like literally the world is calling out for us to take pause, to think, like, yeah, if I do this action, what is the ripple effect of it? What's going to happen as a result of that? So that's being a good relative. That's mitakuye owasi, or that's part of it. There's a lot.
So that sustainable, where you're talking about harvesting, like for meat, that also applies to our plants, and that also applies to our spinach, our kale, our celery, our lettuces, our corn, our cherries, our peaches. That's anytime we go out and collect our own food, and learning how to sustainably harvest without damaging the environment, and knowing where is it going and coming from.
Yeah, I always sleep vegan because I still certain things that I like to not eat because I'm looking at stuff is in coconut, much cold stuff, especially cheeses and stuff. But I'm because of a purely health thing. I was having a lot of GERD. The GERD and stuff when I eat antelope or elk or freshly caught fish. So it really does have a change. If looked at how apples are harvested, be shocked. I have a really good friend that meat packing plant. That's really scary. We are at 3:51. So Houston, if you're there, and open it up to questions. And if you want, you put the question in the see what's going on. Does that sound okay? Yeah.
Yeah, questions are good. I don't see any though.
Yeah.
I am
I don't
squinting,
see
so.
any. Oh, I'm going there like this.
I haven't fully like made the transition to reading glasses. True.
I need goals, but I haven't been able to afford.
Yeah, same probably.
Yes, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and enter it into the Q&A button.
Or comments, because I don't know that I feel like we have an objective. I think the objective, I feel like we've said it, but the biggest thing is just to look locally.
Well, it's also about opening it up. Like I'm cool with doing a follow-up clip, but this is like the first time that we as an Indigenous Baha'i community are talking about Indigenous food and sustainability, and it shows like how it's going to affect us, especially during this pandemic. I called Joy and Kimmy immediately after I got off a conference call with the No Border Wall Support crew, and there was a gentleman who works in the food industry in Mexico, and he gave not only me but the rest of the group an update that they're starting to feel the food shortage in Mexico, and that really scared me. And as soon as I got off the phone with them, I ended up calling Joy and Kimmy and being like, "Are you guys ready? This is real. What are we gonna do once the current system of food that we have now breaks down?"
Oh, we have a Ruhia,
right.
I think, has a question. Yeah. Ruhia, are you able to talk?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just think I'm really curious and interested in the idea that you guys raised around regional, local, indigenous foods, right? Being essential for our health and well-being. And as a person who experienced colonization also, right? My background is I'm a descendant of Africans in America. And we as a community experience such significant health impacts related to, I believe, being taken from our local places, right? And then food and medicines being supplanted. And I'm really curious about, as we move forward in understanding as humanity, the link that will continue to reveal itself, and how we can regain our health as humanity, particularly as people who have been taken or overtaken, right? By using and reconnect with where we came from and who we are and what is important for our bodies to grow.
I don't know that we have the answer per se.
I think we do. I think we do. Joy?
We do. I think we do. It's really important. There's a deep connection in our Black brothers and sisters community. This connection between both, and both of our communities, the exact same disease functionality of of things, diabetes and heart disease and alcohol and a lot of the social ills, you know, they affect, and these are what you said, colonial forced, so it's a forced. But when we start getting back to that are more, that are away from the sugar, when we start eating a more well balanced, and we start exercising, because hunters exercisers, right? And within our both of our genetically DNA, I think we do have a lot of these, and I think in a lot of these communities, I think together, this is and Indigenous allyship. This is an effect of that allyship. We can really work together and have better, healthy communities, really in urban. So, but I do think together.
So one of the things that she brought up was like there's certain like different bodies for different types of food that they're accustomed to, and that cellular memory, which all of us believe in. It's not just the Indigenous community. Like there's so many people globally that understand cellular memory and understanding that the molecular structures of this. One of the things that's really, really great now is we can do the research to see what tribe, it doesn't matter where you come from, and you can look. So one of the things that is really structured in Indigenous food sovereignty for Africa is they were mostly plant-based, and we can utilize that to help our Black communities again, and we can get them to a place. And one thing I really want to stress is like through colonization, Afro-Indigenous people existed, and that's because their ancestors and our ancestors recognized this alliance and created it long ago. And that's how we were able to be where we are today, is because of each other.
One question we got is, I think I understand food sustainability, but I'm not sure I really understand food sovereignty. Could you please explain a little bit more about that? Thanks.
Food sovereignty is so what does sovereign means? Being able
Andy, can you go play that
to
somewhere
have
else
those
right now, please?
systems in
Just for a
place
second. I can't
where
help you.
you are care of yourself, your community. So you at all gonna want at some, we're used to having the bear or the donut, having, you know, some exotic, you know, coffee bean or whatever it is. What need individual lives to live and in a sustainable where we can within our communities. So, sovereign, like in a lot of communities, whether nations, having healthy, fresh juice, is something that's not always there. And a large part, a lot of our communities have one, maybe two grocery stores that you know, miles. And so having healthy, fresh produce available. There's been a big push within our communities to develop community gardens. The Braveheart Society worked down in Yankton and they put in a whole bunch of community gardens. There's the gardens here on Cheyenne River. They've been working on community gardens Rock and some of the other communities so that we can provide fresh produce. But it's also because it's been out of our existence for so many years that sometimes when people don't even know how to use it, to retrain ourselves how to use fresh produce. Ourselves, how do I use the squash? Use kale. Up at Rock at the camp. Kale at the Prairie Nights because the vegetarian grabbed the kale out of the ice. Even know that it was a real food. But it like they're separate but they're interconnected.
So my thing on food sovereignty is being independent and not depending on corporations or the system. That's my view of food sovereignty, is being independent and not depending on the system to provide for us, that we can provide for ourselves. And that's why we need to really stress food sovereignty and sustainable harvesting for our communities, because we need to all eat to function.
So don't or Mel or Libby or I don't even know.
One of my favorite
See, I
stories.
don't even know the I don't even know the name of corporations anymore. That doesn't mean that you don't count on little producers. You definitely do. You're going to support local farm producers. Heck of a better product anyway. I know that.
So another question is, first, I would like to say thank you for your insight. I am listening from Greenland. I would like to ask if this could be open to the, could be open, if we could open this consultation on food sovereignty, could be opened up to other indigenous communities such as in Greenland. Our national communities are very interested in the concepts of food security, and our Baha'i community has also started this conversation. How can we be a part of this?
It's happening up there.
Yeah, what's happening up?
No, it is happening. I'm saying it is happening. And I don't know. I have Inuk friends, and so I know that they're all about food sovereignty. And again, I couldn't name sources or whatever, but that's similar. Like their concepts of food sovereignty are similar to what we've been describing. I mean, that's their fishing rights, though. I don't, and again, I don't want to speak too much to what they're delving into up there because I'm not sure, and I don't want to speak out of ignorance, but I do know that our Arctic Circle relatives in general have been fighting for their rights, their hunting rights, their fishing rights, their right to whale hunt. And it's all the same fight, like everywhere, from the Arctic Circle to the middle of the prairie, to the heart of the prairies, all the way down to the Amazon. It's the same fight. So if the Baha'i community in Greenland or Nuuk or Iqaluit or anywhere, you know, anywhere up in that area or anywhere else, there's already food sovereignty discussions to be sustainable, to be able to take care of, you know, each other, to take care of your relatives, to that, those things are already happening and underway. It's just a matter of getting plugged into, you know, to the local the local happenings, or the movers and shakers, because they're everywhere. I promise. Hey.
Someone else asked, can you speak a little about how Abdu'l-Baha spoke about using food as medicine and how this connects to Lakota wisdom?
Food medicine with Abdu'l-Baha. Well, if I can find any, I don't think I can those in my notes right there. Read about what Abdu'l-Baha talks about Asian, and he talks more of a person concerned, you know, he didn't eat just, these are all we all know, right? He was more plant-based diet, didn't eat meat occasionally. But he was in his foods. About medicine, I mean, that's everything that we bring. You know what, like Kimimila, is it something on and you've prayed over? You pick the choke cherries to say cherries for provision. You know, say a prayer over the day that you're gonna take home, and did you pray in your garden all summer? Everything has a geez. Everything that you put in has an energy, spoken, a pray, action has an opposite and equal science. Also in the spiritual realm too. So you to go study more about what I talks about. Talks about some that I know about, and some answered questions for in every talks about that he was very conservative, and yeah.
When it comes to like medicinal and feeding your immune system, that's really important, and that is a hardcore Lakota concept. Whatever we take into our body is a medicine. So whether it's you're receiving the medicine in ceremony or you're eating it on a daily. I'm going to share a quick story about I was 28 years old and we were making a buffalo stew, and we threw in like the buffalo rump roast with the bone in it, and we started boiling it, and then we start throwing in like nettles, timsila, nettles, turnips, and we start throwing in like all these traditional plants that historically grow from the prairie. And that was like a regular dose of medicine, but that was our daily food intake, like to have that type of soup, to have nettles and turnips and echinacea in there. And then ironically, I found it really interesting that we had maple syrup, but we didn't use it as a sweetener. We used it to thicken our soups up so it could be stewy. I thought that was really cool. And so I recently started helping my sister-in-law Ashley Phelps learning medicinal plants. She already has a great teacher. Her name is Steph Crow. She's an amazing lady, amazing Ogallala down there. And we work together all the time. But I was like taking my sister-in-law out and I was showing her like, this is what's growing in your yard. This is what you can be utilizing it for. This is how you collect it. This is how you, and then not only like collecting it, but how to process it. This is how you process this plant. You can dry it. You can stick it in and make it into an oil to do a cold infusion. You can put it into an apple cider vinegar. You can do anything, right? And she was like, oh my God, this is so sacred. This is so knowledgeable. And I was just like, it is really sacred knowledge. It is incredible knowledge to have. But at one time, we all had this knowledge. And through colonization, this knowledge was taken away. And it is sacred, but I wanted to understand that there is no gatekeeping in Lakota medicinal plants. And that knowledge is passed around to everybody. And it is sacred, but it's not meaning it is not unobtainable knowledge not to have.
Okay. Looks like last question. Honeybees are not native to the Americas. Have you included honeybee colonies in your gardening concept?
So European honeybees are not from here. That is true. But we do have honeybees that are from the prairie. They're a lot smaller. And then we have bumblebees, which bumblebees are historically from here. And they're on the endangered species list. They're the chubby, fat, round ones. They're really cute to look at. But they're the ones that are on the endangered species list. They are historically from here. And they do produce honey, and just not at the mass level as the European honeybee. So I just wanted that really clear, that we do have bees here that are from here that do produce honey, just not at the mass level as European bees. And our bees are currently on the endangered species list, and this is how we need to help them. And again, it comes back to direct action. It comes back to protecting the environment, protecting our indigenous bees that we actually utilize to have.
I don't know. What it's like. If it's about 5:15. You guys want to keep going or? Yep. I had one question. So, like, what are some ways that that like people who are listening can like decolonize and approach things in I guess a more like a way like that's like oneness minded, but that isn't appropriative. Because I think that's where a lot of people who aren't indigenous go to is like, oh, I want to clear my space, so I'm going to get some sage. But like, what's a way that people could do that that's not appropriative?
Well, for you, you're really lucky that the three of us are your sisters, right? And so you call up your indigenous relative and you ask them to send you a bundle. But I really don't know how to help someone who isn't a relative in. That's going to have to be someone else. And we do have to be mindful of cultural exploitation. That's like one of the big things that I take on in my world all the time is cultural exploitation of our indigenous knowledge that has been passed down generation to generation, and that is now endangered because of colonization. And again, it comes down to that protocol and etiquette that Kimmy was talking about. So that's what I really want to share. It comes down to the protocol and etiquette that Kimmy was talking about. You don't go into someone's home and just starts taking over. You find out what's acceptable and protocol in that home. That's the same thing with us.
Sorry. Were we wrapping up? I had somebody stop by real quick. Okay.
Oh, we lost Joy. I don't know what happened. She said everything froze.
Yeah.
The question,
we're
Kimmy,
good
was
for that.
cultural exploitation. That's a really good question that Hussein had. How do we do food
I feel like we kind of, yeah, just I mean, like it's what I said. It's like you have to do some research before. There's in the chat that says somebody would like to say something. I don't know how that.
Ruth, are you able to talk?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not going to take up too much time. Just wanted to say thank you. But I wanted to ask, because what I had put in a question about how to connect the Greenlandic people with the inspirational things that you have said here. And I think I was misunderstood, because it's nothing to do with the fact that Greenlandic people don't understand their own sovereignty and things like they're working very hard. But one of the challenges is that as young Greenlandic Baha'i, they are trying to navigate both what they like what's happening politically and in the country at large, and also trying to connect that with their Baha'i thoughts. And this is what was so inspiring with talking or listening to what you were saying today, and that is like, how do we give we're a very large young Greenlandic community that are going to the Greenlandic University there, maybe 20, 30, which I feel in Greenland is very big, 20, 30 young people. And they're all working towards creating this, you know, both as Baha'is, but also as Greenlandic people and their own understanding of being Inuit. And it's more like a question of like, how could there be a connection at some point so that they could be inspired by what you're talking about, and actually talk with other Indigenous Baha'is about the things like food sovereignty, which is a challenge in Greenland, not in being able to have the right to do it, but actually just the fact that there are so, yeah, I think that I've said enough.
Okay, so I personally believe in like the Baha'i Network, and this is why we did that, so we could have this outreach into other places. So we're more than glad to network with our Indigenous youth and with the Greenland youth and connecting them so they can empower each other. But one thing that I have learned, especially through the No Dapple movement and the Miniwichoni movement, is you allow the youth to take their lead, and you allow the youth to navigate where they want to go and what knowledge they want to make and the networks they want to make. And that's one thing that I learned through the movement, was when you release that control and give it to the youth, they will move mountains. They will move mountains that you thought were so hard to overcome or to go through. And that's one thing I really want to stress, is like, I really do appreciate that you're wanting to help make these connections, but you should also encourage them to reach out also on their own and letting them know that we are here. Because our youth is the one that moved Standing Rock. They literally ran. Like, they ran all the way. They're like, globally, it's our youth that got Standing Rock known.
So we have I think one comment and then one last question, maybe if that's all right. It says, Joy Kimimila Waniya, thank you for the wonderful discussion. One thought I had in addition of supporting local eco producers, I also want to draw our attention to referencing what our elders' wisdom. My grandmother had such amazing wisdom utilizing foods as medicine, and is almost as if that concept of medicine being equal to foods. As a young child, I can remember coming to spend summers in the Southeast Tennessee and having asthma. My mom explained that I did not eat much and needed pharmacy medicines. My wise grandmother opened up her cupboard of jars of fruits, vegetables, put up as a natural medicine such as sassafras. My grandmother has Cherokee and Afro-Cuban heritage. I thrived and never had asthma attacks while with her. And then that's from Stephanie, who actually just lives down the street from me. And then Jalali has a question. What would a utopia look like with justice and food sovereignty for you? What would you like to see differently from right here and now?
I'm actually working to create that with the Miniwichoni Nakichise Women's. That's we're reopening the school that we had at camp, but that's the whole idea behind it. Is to what we experienced was like a small sample of food sovereignty and being sustainable. And granted, I'm not, I'm not discounting the financial funds and that came in, but there was a lot of things, a lot of food that was grown and donated and given, and that's what we're trying to redo and to make it a permanent situation. So what we have is 60 acres of land. It's getting developed. Literally every foot is it's in a plan so that it's basically an edible plot of land. And I'm hesitant to call it a school because it's going to be a learning place, and also like a place to support learning wherever students are going. So yeah, and then part of that is also having young people learn to grow food, harvest food, to follow the Lakota calendar, to follow the moon, to follow when to collect the medicine. So essentially, we're in the process of creating that between like the school as well as the Miniwichoni clinic. Again, this is like the healer medics that were at camp, but it's focusing on the whole person, like healing the whole person from the spiritual to the physical to the mental to and including all of it, which like food sovereignty is only one part of it. So yeah, we're in the process of creating our own utopia. Hey. Oh-ha. I feel like that's a good spot to wrap up there. So
I'm wondering, it's like, is there like a Venmo if people wanted to support any of that work, or?
We do. We got a PayPal. Hey, let me see if I can find it right quick. It's like Defenders of the Water. Is defendersofthewater.info@gmail. Is that our? Hold on. Let me not. I should know this stuff, right? We literally just got it set up though, so I don't have it. Let me find it right quick. But also, you could also follow us. So we're in the process of creating the webpage. I had no idea how much goes into creating a webpage. Like all the, yeah. You don't realize what goes into it until you go to a webpage and you're looking for something and you can't find it, and then you realize that's a lot of information that goes into that. So that's what we're working on right now. I don't have it, but if you follow us on Facebook, Miniwichoni Nakichise Wo'unspe, I'll put it into the chat. And yeah, I think we're good.
So that's to help to donate to the school and creating this utopia on food sustainability and sovereignty. But if you want to help us individually, Kimmy does have an account through PayPal. Joye Braun also has one through PayPal, and myself, we have one. I prefer Venmo because I like to be transparent. That's the one I really try to push towards public. PayPal I try to keep personal for like me and my family, but Venmo is what I prefer, so people can see how much I'm getting and where is it going towards. But the three of us, all of us do have our own links, and you can help us because we're still moving bridges, broke on flat tires, and we're still moving forward, literally. Like flat tires, no headlights, still pushing forward. We'll figure it out. So if you do want to donate, that would be welcome. It is mutual aid, FYI. Just like if you donate to us, it is mutual aid because we're turning around and giving it back to our community. So I want that really, really clear. If you're helping us, it's going back into our community in some form. And Kimmy will never say that. You can see her getting red.
Do you want to put the links in the chat?
The guys with the purple are really good.
Oh, is it working? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah, I just put up the school there, and that's good for Waniya.
Oh, I have Waniya's, but I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're muted.
I mean,
Waniya, you're muted.
if money comes my way, yeah, we flip it. We turn it like right back around. Hit it like goes right. It's not. Yeah, can't even say it. Okay,
going
I
into
don't
the
just ball
community.
out on money people send me. Face is getting all hot. Anyway.
Well, no, I'm just letting you know it is mutual aid. If you help Joy, Kimmy, or me, it is mutual aid. We do pump it back into the community in some form.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my link is to help with the positive COVID families on Standing Rock.
Did you share the link in the chat, or I could share it?
I think you should, because I just tried and I gave up.
Oh. Oh.
But
My
Joy
kids have my
has,
phone.
yeah,
Oh,
Joy
yeah,
has
Joy.
one. Kimmy does have one, and I do have one. Plus the
Okay.
schools.
I'll post.
Many,
Oh, I'll post the links when I post the video of this. I'll post those in the comments
Okay.
or something.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Thanks
more.
for tuning in.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
everyone. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Doksa.
Doksa.
Bye.